Former Chicago police detective Joseph Frugoli was never tested for alcohol. The night in 2008 he ran a stop sign and T-boned a squad car after a 6-hour visit to an Indiana casino. Although one of the injured officers noticed Frugoli's eyes were glassy, the veteran homicide detective was placed in a sergeant's squad car, handed 2 minor traffic tickets, and driven home before he was ever even questioned. A little over a year later, Frugoli had a blood alcohol content about 4 times the legal limit when his SUV plowed into a disabled vehicle on the Dan Ryan Expressway in April 2009, killing 2 young men trapped in the fiery wreckage. By the time a state trooper arrived at the hospital to arrest Frugoli, a high-ranking Chicago police official acting as street deputy that night was already there and prevented Frugoli from making any statements. Mr. Frugoli sat up and said, "I wasn't driving." "Did you find the other guy?" Trooper Garrett Lindroth testified this week in federal court. The street deputy put a hand on Frugoli's shoulder and told him to be quiet and just let the trooper do his job. Whether Frugoli was protected by his fellow cops is at the center of a wrongful death lawsuit filed by the families of the 2 men who perished in the 2009 crash, Andrew Cazares and Fausto Manzara. The suit alleges the police department's so-called code of silence led Frugoli to believe that he could drink and drive with impunity. The city has denied that any code of silence influenced Frugoli's decisions that night and argues that taxpayers should not be on the hook because the crash occurred while he was off duty. On Thursday, Frugoli, brought from prison, where he is serving an 8-year sentence for an aggravated DUI conviction in the fatal 2009 wreck, took the witness stand and denied he felt he could get away with driving drunk because of his status as a police officer. He said he'd seen fellow officers get fired and go to prison for it and that no one was above the law. Dressed in a white polo shirt and wearing glasses, Frugoli, 50, testified calmly for about 2 hours in U.S. District Judge Virginia Kendall's courtroom, occasionally sipping from a cup of water as attorneys for the victims asked him repeatedly about his problems with alcohol and history of traffic crashes. He said he started drinking when he was a teenager and by the time he was in his 30s he would regularly consume up to 20 drinks in a day, typically Miller Lite beer supplemented by Jaeger bomb shots, a mix of Jägermeister liqueur and Red Bull. He frequented well-known cop-friendly bars like Shinnick's Pub in Bridgeport, Dugan's on Halsted Street in the Greektown neighborhood and 115 Bourbon Street in Marionette Park, often drinking with other detectives from the Wentworth area. Frugoli testified he never drove drunk. In fact, he said, the 2009 fatal crash was the first time he had done so, to the best of my knowledge. Still, Frugoli testified he knew he had a problem. In 2007, he requested a transfer to the overnight shift so that bars would close before he could drink too much. Since the crash that killed Cazares and Manzara, he hasn't had a drop, he said.